matters a lot, despite how much knowledge you have. Okay, it depends. In experimental material science, if you want to do the research, your knowledge is okay, it's good, it's required. But more than your knowledge, you should be aware of the where the facilities are available, where you can get what is the process, how can you approach them, whether it's a chargeable, not chargeable. These things matters a lot. If these all these things are available to you in your hand, then the work in PhD which we are doing in 3 to 4 years, that can easily be done within 1 year or maybe 1.5 year. Always it takes time in characterizing the sample. Sometimes it takes more than few months in order to get the data. Okay, so this is another topic. So let's come back to our RBS topic. Suppose you have an accelerator. Yeah, I was telling you that this accelerator is available like in India. One very good accelerator is available at Inter University Accelerator Center, IUAC, New Delhi. It's a user facility center. You can easily approach them. They will provide you the beam and everything without any cost. Nowadays, one accelerator has been set up at Allahabad University. Okay, that is also a very high fluence facility. Means their current is so high that within a minimum period of time, you can easily get your sample implanted. A third facility is set up recently at Kurukshetra University in Haryana in Department of Physics. Okay, that facility is very good, and that facility is good in that sense. You can get a metal beam also. Like suppose you want to get a low energy beam of silver. Okay, it's not so easy because gaseous ions can be easily accelerated, but to accelerate a metal ion, it's not so easy. So that metallic beam is also available there. One facility of similar kind is available at Naisar, Odisha, Bhubaneswar. National Institute of Science, Education and Research recently installed, and one facility is available at IZCAR Kalpakkam. That is also a user facility center. Earlier at IIT Kanpur also, there was a one facility, but I think now that facility is not working. It is down for last couple of years. Okay, so still we have at least four. One is there in IOP Bhubaneswar also, Institute of Physics Bhubaneswar. That facility is also working. So still in India, we have several places where you can go, you can see the accelerator, you can see how the data is, machine is recording, and you can perform your measurements. Okay. In order to perform a backscattering measurement on one sample, it hardly takes 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, it doesn't take much time. But to set up the things, okay, like you have to mount your sample in a chamber where you have to create a very high vacuum around 10 to the power minus 5 to 10 to the power minus 6 store. So that takes around 1 to 2 hours, okay, to allocate your chamber. So in RBS, in order to set up the things, it takes a lot of time. Sometimes it takes half day, maybe for 6 hours, 8 hours. But to get the measurements done, it takes hardly couple of minutes. Okay. So what we are doing, suppose we are performing some RBS measurements. So at a time in our chamber, we will mount many samples. Let's say 10, 20. Okay, and within 1 hour we will get the data, but in order to prepare the chamber, it will take time. Okay, so I suggest all of you that if you really want to know more about the RBS, you should visit these centers, and they have some program, orientation program for MSc, MTech, PhD students. They will call you, they will take you around the accelerators, they will explain you all these things. Then you can even you can record your measurements also. I mean, you can get your measurements done there. Okay, so let's come back to thing. Now another question is that can anybody tell me why I am talking about a backscattering? Okay, backscattering means it should come back in the original direction. Then it will be really a backscattering. Then why we are putting detector at 10 degree? Why not directly at 0 degree? Any answer? Can anybody think of why we are putting detector at here? Like let's say like from the normal, if I'm talking, why we are keeping detector at 170 degree? Why not at 180 degree? Because if you in backscattered ion, you will get the maximum yield at 180 degree.
So maybe it will maybe collide with the source beam. It could be the possibility.
Yes. Any other answer? Yeah, you are right. I mean, the thing is that if you have a detector, the detector is itself having some finite width. Okay, you can't get a detector of, let's say, micrometer or millimeter size. Detector are big in size. Okay, let's say the cross sectional diameter of a detector is, let's say, 10 centimeter. Okay, So you cannot put at 180 degree, otherwise they will block the incoming beam. So you are trying to put detector at a minimum angle, let's say 2 degree or 3 degree, depending on your detector or the diameter of the detector. Okay. Suppose you have a big detector, then you will keep at a 10 degree so that it will not block your incoming beam. If you have a very small detector, then you can put at 2 degree or 3 degree. But you will always try to put at a minimum angle, so because you will get a maximum yield at a at directly 180 degree angle. Okay. Now, so in order to perform the backscattering measurement, we should have one accelerator. This is our sample. It will hit your atoms of your sample. The atoms will be backscattered, and then helium ions will be backscattered, and then we will measure the energy and the yield using some solid state detectors. Okay. Now question comes that because for backscattering, the mass of the incoming ion should always be lesser than the mass of your atoms present in your sample. But now suppose you want to measure hydrogen. Hydrogen is having a mass lesser than helium. So from RBS, you cannot measure hydrogen. This is a drawback of RBS techniques. So can anybody tell me that how can we measure hydrogen? I mean, any idea or any clue? How can you measure hydrogen? Because why I'm telling you, because if you have suppose hydrogen atoms in your sample, once helium ion will hit the hydrogen atom, helium ions will go in forward direction, they will not come in backward direction, because mass of the helium ion is higher than the hydrogen atom, so they will hit, then hydrogen and helium both will go in forward direction, so your detector will not get any backscattered helium ion, so it will not be able to help you, it will not be able to give you any data. So now how can we measure hydrogen? Like people are working on hydrogen storage. Okay. Suppose you are putting your sample in hydrogen atmosphere, let's say for 10 hours. After that, you would like to measure how much hydrogen has been stored in your sample. For that, you have to measure measure the quantitatively how much hydrogen is there in your sample. Means what is its atomic concentration. Then how can you measure hydrogen? Anyone, any idea? जो भी आपके माइंड में है, don't worry. It may be your absurd answer, but at least it will show you that you are thinking. Okay, you are trying to think in some manner. So can you anybody tell me that how you can measure hydrogen? No idea.
No, sir, please tell.
Yeah. So I told you that suppose you have a hydrogen in your sample. Once helium ion will come from this direction. Okay, I'll take the mouse. Change pointer option. Let's say laser button. Yeah. So this helium ion is coming in the direction you have a hydrogen present in your material. Then once helium atom will be having a collision, then both the helium and hydrogen may go forward. Okay, it means helium ions will not come back; they will go in forward direction. Okay, so in order to measure the hydrogen, you will not put detector here. You will keep detector at somewhere here. Okay, and
Yes.
your helium ion will not come at a perpendicular angle at a 90 degree. Now they will come on some glancing angle at a 2 degree or 3 degree, so that they will hit the hydrogen, and then they will going in forward direction. So this is a totally different technique. This is not the backscattering, because now you are not measuring the backscattered helium ions. So that technique is called ERDA, elastic recoil detection analysis. Okay. So suppose you want to measure hydrogen, then you have to perform ERDA. Your accelerator will remain same. Your detector will remain same. Just you will change the geometry. Now instead of getting helium at 90 degree, you will be you will be applying helium ion at some small angle. Then you will be measuring the helium ion which are going in the forward direction. Okay, and you will change the detector position. So just by changing the geometry, you can also measure hydrogen, but then it is called a separate technique, which is ERDA. That I will tell you a little bit in our future slides.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So the one thing is that you can easily measure the thickness of the film using RBS. Second, you can find out what elements are present in your sample. Suppose आपने बनाया ZnO, जिंक ऑक्साइड पे बहुत लोग काम करते हैं, आप ZnO बना रहे हैं, ठीक है. Once you will deposit a film of ZnO, there it might be possible that in your sample there is a impurity of other atoms also. Like instead of I mean ZnO is obviously there 90%. For few percent you may get silicon also. For few percent you may get another nickel also, another impure atoms. Okay. Now in order to find out what other elements are present, so you have to perform RBS. So RBS will tell you what different elements of periodic table are present in your sample and what is their atomic concentration. Okay. Suppose मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मैंने सिलिकॉन बनाया है. Okay. सिलिकॉन क्या है, SiO, सिलिकॉन का ऑक्साइड बहुत जल्दी बन जाता है. It's very easy to get SiO2. Okay, suppose you have a silicon and you keep in air for a few hours, you will get a oxide layer over it. Okay, but now how much oxygen is present, that you have to find out. अगर ऑक्सीजन बहुत कम है तो आपका बहुत कम सिलिकॉन ऑक्साइड में बना है और सारा सिलिकॉन ही है. But in order to find out that how much oxygen is present, then again that elemental concentration will be knowing by RBS. Okay, and not only the elemental concentration, it will tell you concentration and how it is varying with the depth of your sample. Suppose कि आपका ऑक्सीजन सरफेस पे ज़्यादा है या आपके जो सैंपल का सपोज 100 नैनोमीटर है तो आपके it is maximum at 50 nanometer from the surface or it is maximum at 60 nanometer or 80 nanometer. That kind of information also you can get, and that is called depth profiling. So in nutshell, I can tell you that from RBS you can find out what is the thickness of your sample, what different elements are present in your sample, what is their atomic concentration, and what is their depth profile. Okay, so these four things you should always remember, because yesterday I was hearing one progress report presentation by one of our PhD student, and one examiner asked him the same question. Suppose you want to measure film thickness of your film, how can you measure? Okay, so the answer is that we can easily measure through RBS. Okay, so I'll read these slides also. It is easiest to understand and to apply as it is based on classical scattering in a central force field. जैसे आपने पढ़ा था ना रदरफोर्ड का जो ये मॉडल था जिसमें उन्होंने इलेक्ट्रॉन या वो सब देखे थे, वाटरमेलन मॉडल, उसमें एक गोल्ड फॉइल से बैक स्कैटरिंग कराई थी या फॉरवर्ड स्कैटरिंग कराई थी. तो उसी तरह यहाँ कुछ है. Then backscattering measurements are insensitive to chemical bonding. This is very important line. Backscattering measurements are insensitive to chemical bonding. So RBS data will tell you that what different elements are present, but it will not tell you, I am saying it will not tell you whether there is a bond between these two elements or not. Okay, like why I am saying, suppose you are working in with copper. Okay, कॉपर बहुत अच्छा एलिमेंट है, बहुत लोग काम करते हैं. हम जब भी कॉपर बनाएंगे तो उसमें हमेशा कॉपर ऑक्साइड बन जाता है. बट कॉपर, देयर आर मेनी फॉर्म्स ऑफ कॉपर ऑक्साइड. इट मे बी ए CuO, इट मे बी Cu2O, इट मे बी Cu2O2. Okay, there are few other forms also. So RBS will tell you that how that much quantity of oxygen is present in your sample, but it will not tell you that what is the chemical bonding between copper and oxygen, whether it's a Cu2 or whether it's a CuO, whether it's a Cu2O2. Okay, because
So
it depends on.
So we
Yeah,
can
yes,
also
sir.
use it as a complementary for XPS.
Yeah, exactly. So XPS will easily tell you what is the chemical bonding, but RBS will not tell you. But from RBS, you can easily get the elemental concentration up to a very good resolution, up to a very good accuracy. Okay. So if you have a RBS data and then your XPS data, so XPS data will tell you the chemical bonding and RBS will give you the exact elemental concentration. So both of these techniques will verify your results. Okay. So that's why we are performing XPS also in order to get the chemical bonding. But if you have RBS with that, then it will make your data stronger. Nobody will make any question then on it. Okay. Third point is that based on collisions between atomic nuclei. I have already told you it's a collision between your incoming ion and the atoms present in your sample. It involves measuring the number and energy of ions in backscattered beams. Okay. Like I have told you, I have already told you that backscattered ions will be measured and their energy will be measured using this detector. Hydrogen cannot be detected by RBS as there is no element lighter than hydrogen, because for the back scattering means it should come in backward direction. Your incoming mass of the incoming ion should be lesser than the mass of your elements present in your sample. Okay, so the application is the determination of atomic masses, determination of elemental concentration versus depth below the surface, crystallinity of the samples. Okay, how crystallinity of the sample? Any idea? Can anybody tell me? Because I want this lecture in more in form of discussion, not just I am talking and you are listening. What is the crystallinity? Can anybody tell me crystallinity क्या होता है? What is the crystallinity? आप में से MSc स्टूडेंट्स को कुछ को मैंने पहले पढ़ाया था.
Crystallinity defines the order of a material or sample, how much is in order.
Yeah, exactly. Very good, very good. So crystallinity tells you that whether your atoms are arranged in a regular fashion or they are at random. Okay. If I am saying that all the atoms are in regular fashion, it means it's a crystalline sample. But if atoms are in random fashion, they are not sitting at their atomic places, then it's a amorphous sample. So I'm saying that with the RBS, you can find out crystallinity of the sample. It looks very odd to me. How can? Can you think how can using this measurements, using this RBS, you can find out crystallinity of the sample? But I don't understand how. Because in RBS, a helium beam is coming, it is hitting your elements of your sample, and helium ions are going back, and we are measuring the energy. But from where crystallinity comes? How can you find crystallinity? So it comes from another important terms which is called channeling. Using this RBS geometry, you can perform channeling also. And channeling tells you about a single crystal. Channeling is basically for a single crystal. Okay. So what is single crystal? Single crystal means all the atoms are arranged in a regular fashion. Okay. Suppose your beam is coming in the direction of your back plane of your single crystal. Okay. Then all the atoms are arranged in one direction. So helium beam will not be able to hit any atom. It will be directly passed through of all your samples. Let's say this one. I have some slides. I show you. There are many things to learn. Yeah. Yeah, here in this figure, can you see like these are single crystals because all the atoms are arranged in one fashion. Okay. Now here helium beams are coming and it is hitting your atoms and it is going back. So you are getting some profile. But if you change the orientation of the crystal now like this, so all the atom here, most of the helium ions, they will pass through like this in this direction. They will not be able to find any atoms present in your sample to have a collision. Okay. So basically they are making a channel so that your incoming ion will pass through. Okay. So because here most of the helium ion will pass through, so the yield will come down. So like you see here yield is around 1600. Yield means number of backscattered helium ions. So 16,000 atoms or 20,000 you are getting. But if you are changing the orientation, then you are getting a very small yield, let's say 4,000. So you have only 4,000 ions. Okay. It means from this you can find out the orientation of your crystal, means in what direction you have the channel. So for performing channeling through RBS, what you will do, you will change the orientation of a crystal while beam is continuously coming and you are recording the data in the detector, and continuously you are changing the position of your crystal. Okay, you are rotating it. Okay, and you are there is a goniometer which can tell you the rotation, like it's a 20 degree, 21 degree, 24 degree, like this. Okay, and continuously you are recording a data. As soon as your crystal will come in a orientation where it is directly in the direction of the beam, means channel has happened, then suddenly the statistics will go down. Now your yield will suddenly come out. It means as soon as yield has come down, it means your beam is now in the direction of the channel. So from this you can find out the orientation of your crystal, means in what direction the atoms of the crystal are oriented. This is called channeling. And that kind of experiments also you can perform. And these are very, very interesting measurements, because crystal is having lots of physics, lots of things. But if you know the orientation of the crystal, then only you can do the many things. And how can you get the orientation? Through channeling. But it is basically RBS. Only thing is that now we are changing the orientation of the crystal also, means our samples also. So this is called channeling. So channeling is another important thing, but it takes a lot of time, because you have to move crystal at a very, very small angle. Let's say 20.21.01, 21.02, 21.03. So much small angle you have to vary. Then only you will get a direction where most of the helium ion will pass through. They will not be finding any atoms present in your crystal for the collision, and suddenly the statistics will go down. So this is called channel. Okay, but these are very, very precise measurements. But channeling measurement, for one measurement it takes full day. Okay, let's come back to RBS. So now I come back to the kinematics of the elastic collisions. So what is happening, like let's say see this figure. You have your sample is here, means your material is here, and the thickness of your material is 900 angstrom, means 90 nanometer. Okay, this is your thickness. 2.0 maybe helium beam is coming here, its energy is E naught. Okay, when it will come to the surface of your crystal, it will be having a collision with the atoms of your sample, where you have present platinum and silicon. In your sample you have PT and Si. Okay, so it will hit and it will go back. So the backscattered helium ion energy is E1. Okay, but all will not be backscattered, some will go further also. Okay, and they will go further deep into your material. At some depth they will find another atom, so they will be having another collision. Okay, and then they will be backscattered like this. So from going from x is equal to 0 to x is equal to 900 angstrom, they will keep on continuously be having collisions with the atoms present in your crystal, and they will be backscattering. Okay, so now once ion will go here to here, initially its energy was E0. Now once it will go from here to here, it will lose its energy in the collisions. And when it is coming at your maximum depth, like at x is equal to 900 angstrom, then suppose its energy is E2. And after that, when it will go back, suppose because it will be having further collision, its energy is E3. And once it will leave your surface, its energy is E4. Okay, so everything depends on how a detector, means everything depends that how the energy is varying, and with the position also. Okay, so it depends on the position also, because all the detector has some view angle. Okay, let's say 10 degree or 20 degree, in that it can measure all the energy, because we are not rotating detector that it can detect all the backscattered helium ions in every direction. Okay, so now here we have plot a profile, like this is our x-axis where we have the energy, and this is our y-axis where we have a yield. Okay, so those ions, like platinum and silicon, which one is lighter? Platinum and silicon, which one is lighter? Obviously silicon is lighter. Okay, so सिलिकन में जब आपका यहाँ पे सिलिकन प्रेजेंट है और कोलिजन होगा, so you can easily apply the law of conservation of momentum and law of conservation of linear momentum and energy, and you can easily find out what will be the energy of the backscattered ions, which is E1. Okay, it is further going and having collision, then further after losing some energy again it will be backscattered. So using those relations, like you can easily apply law of conservation of momentum and energy, and then you can find out this equation which tells you the energy E1 after backscattering from the surface. E0 is the initial energy, M naught is the mass of the helium ion, and M is the mass present in your element from where the helium ions are backscattered. So it's a calculation of only two to three pages. You can easily do it, and this will be basically assignment to you also. I want to find out the kinematic factor. This bracket, the parameters within this bracket, the quantity is called kinematic factor Km. Okay, so E1 is the energy of the backscattered ions, E0 is the energy of the incoming ions, and K is the kinematic factor. Okay, so if you know the kinematic factor for a particular element in your sample, let's say for silicon, so you can easily find out what will be the energy E1 of the backscattered ions theoretically. I am saying that you can find out this spectrum theoretically also, because experimentally you will get one spectrum. Then you have to simulate that spectrum using some theory. Then only you will be able to know how much is the thickness, how much is the elemental concentration. Okay, so a detector will give you only a experimental result, but you have to do the simulation in order to find out the data from the experimental data. Okay, so this you have to find out kinematic factor means how you are getting this equation. Okay, that is one assignment to you. So if you know the kinematic factor, you can easily find out
Excuse me, sir.
yeah, please.
Sir, can you repeat E0 is
Incoming,
in
yeah, it is written here. You see in this figure, E0
yes,
is
sir.
2.0 MeV.
In
It's the energy of the incoming helium ion.
yes, sir.
And now it is coming to your sample. It is having scattering with the elements present on the surface of your
Sam-
sample.
Sample.
After that, it will be back scattered. Means helium ion will be back scattered. So now
Yes,
after
sir.
back scattering, its energy is even. So
Yes,
now
sir.
theoretical, suppose मैं आपको कह रहा हूँ, I am saying that the energy of the incoming ion is 2.0 MeV. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and you know the helium mass, and it
Yes,
is
sir.
having collision with the silicon atoms. You know the mass of the silicon.
Yes, sir.
Now theoretically, you can find out what will be the energy even, means after backscattering, or how much energy will be lost by helium ions in collision with the silicon atoms. So you can easily find out then even. Okay.
Okay.
So this is theoretically just I have written here. Consider a mass m0 and e0 of the incident ion on the surface, and elastic collision. I told you that this collision is elastic. So because it's a elastic collision, you can easily apply the law of conservation of energy and law of conservation of momentum. Okay. So by
Okay.
applying these two law, you can find out this equation. I have directly written here, but easily doing one or two page calculation, you can easily find out this. Okay. So this will be the assignment for you.
Thank you,
So
sir.
you can see here in this curve, the peak for the silicon is coming here at low energy, and peak for the platinum is coming here at high energy. Okay. Here it is showing a rectangular peak because I am taking ideal situation, but generally it will be a Gaussian peak. Okay, because experimentally there is always some limitations. So for the lighter ions, it is coming at the low energy. It means that if you have two elements in your sample, a heavier, a lighter, okay, so helium ions are losing more energy in collision with lighter ions rather than the higher ions. So जब lighter ions से उनका collision हो रहा है तो ज़्यादा energy lose कर रहे हैं, so that back scattering में कम energy आ रही है उनकी. ज़्यादा energy उन्होंने lose कर दी तो जो after losing they are having very less energy, so even will be less for silicon and even will be high for PT. Okay. Now another question comes, why the lighter ion means when helium is having collision with the lighter ions, they are losing more energy, or back scattered ion is having less energy. Okay, so this is another assignment for you. In last of my slides, I will write you these questions also. Why when the collision is with the lighter atoms, they are losing more energy. Okay, this is another question. Yeah, and this is some animations. You can see here one time it is coming light element and another time it is written heavy element. So once it's a heavy element, then they are losing less energy. So the backscattered ions are having higher energy. For the lighter ions, they are using high energy in the collision, so that backscattered ions are having less energy. Okay. So through this, you can easily find out what are the different elements are present, because loss of energy by the incoming ions is different for different masses. So that things tells you how RBS is telling you what are the different elements present, because collision depends on the masses. If the mass of the element is different, then energy loss of the energy will also be different. So this pictorial or this animation tell you how RBS is able to discriminate between different kinds of elements. How? Because loss of energy is different for different masses. Okay, and this tells you how it can measure, give you the depth profiling also, means that what is the elemental concentration of these elements with respect to the depth. So here you can see I have written the incident ions has collide deeper inside the sample, loses more energy. Means if your incident ion is hitting here, okay, it will lose less energy. Okay, but if it is going into the deeper, it will lose high energy. So depending on whether it is going deeper or it is not going deeper, the energy of the backscattered ions will be different, and accordingly you can make a depth profiling. Okay, so that in that way RBS will give you the depth profiling also. Why? Because अगर आपका आयन बहुत ज्यादा अंदर से हिट होके आ रहा है तो उसकी हिट होने के बाद एनर्जी कम हो जाएगी. Okay.
I have a question actually.
Yes, yes, please.
तो जैसे ये डेप्थ प्रोफाइलिंग मतलब डू वी हैव टू वेरी द एनर्जी या अपने आप ही आई मीन
No, energy is always fixed. Energy of the incoming ion is always fixed. Depth profiling means like your helium ions are having collision with the surface atoms. Okay.
Okay.
And once they will having the atom collision with the surface atom, they will be backscattered. Okay.
Yeah.
But few ions will go deeper also. Okay.
Okay.
Because there is a space between two atoms also. All the atoms are arranged in some fashion. Okay. So few ions will go in deeper also, and then they will be having collision with the deeper atoms of your element. Okay. Now they have already gone at up to some length in your up to some depth in your sample.
Yeah.
So once they will come back in backscatter direction, they will be having further collisions with the atoms, those which will be present in their path. Okay.
Yes.
ऑलरेडी कुछ अंदर जा चुके हैं, जब बाहर आएंगे तो बाहर आते हुए बीच में एलिमेंट में जो आएंगे उनसे कोलिजन में एनर्जी लॉस करेंगे. तो उनसे एनर्जी लॉस करेंगे तो जब वो बैकस्कैटर्ड होकर कंप्लीटली आउट ऑफ सरफेस आएंगे, देन देयर एनर्जी विल बी लेसर.
Okay. So energy variation is going to decide.
In that way you can measure that energy variation, and then you can easily find out the depth profiling. Okay, I will show you with some graphs in my second slide. I will show you some graphs also.
Okay. Yeah.
So I tell you the in elemental information, the crucial test is how well neighboring atoms are resolved, and this ultimately depends on the detector resolution. With 2 MeV helium ions, isotopes with delta M is equal to 1 can generally be separated for M below approximately 40. It means for the elements they are present in your sample and having mass below 40, you can easily identify the isotopes if the mass difference is 1. I mean minimum 1. If it is more than 1 mass difference, it can easily be detected. But if it is mass difference is less than 1, then it will not detect. Through RBS you will not be able to detect these two elements. Okay, so at least there should be a mass difference of 1 between two elements if you want to detect separately through RBS. Like at a value of M is equal to 200, only atoms for which delta M greater than equal to 20 can be resolved. Okay, means आपके अगर मास बहुत आपके जो एलिमेंट्स हैं वो बहुत ज्यादा मास वाले हैं, तब उनको इजीली डिफरेंशिएट करना पॉसिबल नहीं होगा. लेकिन अगर 40 से कम है तो आप इजीली कर सकते हैं. ओके, नाउ डेप्थ रेजोल्यूशन टेल्स सिंस MeV ion beams can only be focused on a split size of 1 millimeter, means if you are using a beam of MeV, then the beam cross section is also having some distance, means beam's cross section is in millimeter. It's in let's say 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter. So the lateral spatial resolution or RBS of RBS is not so great. The depth resolution is commonly quoted to be 200 angstrom or 20 nanometer, but can be improved to 2 nanometer by altering the geometry of the detectors. Okay, so this is the what I was saying. आपका जो बीम होता है उसका भी कुछ क्रॉस सेक्शनल डायमीटर होता है, लेट्स से 2 मिलीमीटर, और आपका डिटेक्टर का भी कुछ आपका कुछ विड्थ होता है. So you cannot put detector just in the path of the incoming beam, okay, because beam itself is having some diameter and your detector is also having some width. So you have to put around at angle of 5 or 6 or 3, let's say, depending on the diameter of the detector. So you will not get the 100% depth resolution, because all the backscatter 100% backscattered ions will go at an angle of 180, but that you will not be able to measure. You are measuring it for the ions which are coming at an angle of 170 or 175 degree. So some depth resolution will be lost there also. So the maximum film depth can be probed depends on the ion used, its energy and nature of the matrix. So typically around 1 micrometer is an upper limit for 2.4 MeV helium on silicon. So suppose you are using 2 MeV or 2.4 MeV helium beam on silicon, then you can easily measure a depth up to 1 micrometer. Okay. आप मैक्सिमम 1 माइक्रोमीटर तक मेजर कर सकते हैं, सब पता कर सकते हैं। सपोज आपके फिल्म की डेप्थ, फिल्म की थिकनेस इट्स 2 माइक्रोमीटर और 5 माइक्रोमीटर, then you will not be able to find out that thickness through RPS. So up to 1 micrometer you can easily find out. But in material science, generally we are doing only for 100 nanometer or 200 nanometer or 500 nanometers. Because to detect nanometer is a typical thing. Micrometer you can easily detect by several techniques. Like if I'm saying you that you should measure 0.5 mm. You can directly take your scale and measure. What is the need of RPS or such a costly techniques to find out 0.5 millimeter? Similarly, 1 micrometer distance can be easily detected by many techniques. But the question comes when you want to measure like 200 nanometer, 100 nanometer, or 50 nanometer. Then RPS comes into picture. Okay, so let's see this graph. This is the experimental data. Okay, so here in this figure you can see our material is deposited on silicon. Silicon is substrate, and in this shaded area it is having platinum as well as silicon. Okay, so our sample contains PT and Si, and this is a thin film, and it is deposited on silicon. Okay, and we are doing measurements with 2 MeV helium ions. So experimentally, you will get this kind of data. Okay. So these are the dots you will get experimentally. From this, now your aim is to find out the information quantitatively. Information means what will be the elements present, what will be their elemental concentration, what will be their depth, all these things. Okay. Because once you will perform the backscattering measurements, you will simply get the raw data like this. Okay. So now you can see we have platinum and silicon in our sample. Okay, obviously silicon is lighter. So I told you if your atom is lighter, then it will lose more energy in collision. So the backscattered ions who are getting collision with the silicons, they will be backscattered, so their energy will be less. So you can see here in this figure, silicon, this is the silicon peak. This is coming at lesser energy compared to platinum. Platinum peak is coming from 1.6 to 1.8 electron volt, and the silicon peak is coming from 0.9 to 1.2. Okay, so it tells you that the peak which is coming at lower energy, it will be of silicon, and which is coming at high energy, it will be of platinum. Suppose you have another atom present in your material having mass greater than platinum, so that peak will come further ahead. I mean further after 1.8, it may come around 2.0 or 2.2 energy, electron volt or whatever unit is there. Okay, so from this data you will get that okay, you are having platinum and silicon. But now how you will be sure that this peak is of platinum only, or the smaller peak is of silicon only? So again that kinematic factor comes into the picture. I told you that by doing some calculation using law of conservation of energy and momentum, you can find out that kinetic factor for all the atoms. It is different for all different atoms, and you can easily make a table. Okay, and from that you can easily calculate what will be the energy of the backscattered helium ions if they are getting collision with silicon or platinum or gold. Okay, if you know the kinematic factor, you simply divide by kinematic factor, because your kinematic factor was nothing, it was E1 by E0. E1 is the backscattered energy, E0 is the incoming energy. Okay, if you know the Km for kinematic factor for all different ions, you can easily find out the energy, and then you can have a estimation that okay, if your peak is coming at 1.8 MeV, means this is the 1.8 MeV, or what is the unit in keV MeV, whatever it will be. So then it will be from platinum, because theoretically you can find out, you know, the kinematic factor for platinum, and similarly silicon. So suppose you have 10 elements in your material. So for all these 10 elements, they will come at different places depending on their masses. And if you know the kinematic factor for all those 10 elements, you can easily detect that which peak belongs to which element. Okay, so then your data will tell you okay, you have these 10 elements present in your material. Okay, suppose you have deposited like here only platinum and silicon, and suppose here at low energy you are getting one more peak. Okay, and from the kinematic factor I can find out oh, its energy is coming corresponding to the energy of oxygen. It means we are getting third peak of oxygen in our sample. That it means our sample is not pure, it has some oxygen also in the form of platinum oxide or silicon oxide. Okay, So this helps you in telling you whether you have some impurity element present in your sample or not. Okay. Now, I told you that this sample is having some thickness. Let's say maybe 50 nanometer or 100 nanometer, whatever it is. Okay. So those, suppose I'm talking only about silicon present in the sample now. So 2.4 MeV helium is coming here, and they will be having backscattering from the silicon atoms present on the surface, and they will go in this direction, and detector will measure their energy. But some of the helium atoms will go deeper also, because silicon is present throughout the sample. So once helium will go deeper in their path, it will find another silicon. Again, it will be having collision, and then again it will be backscattered. Okay. So once it will go deeper, and when it will come back, so during coming back, again it will find some silicon atoms, and again it will be having collision. So if it is going deeper and then after the collision it is coming back, then obviously its energy after coming back will be lesser than those which were backscattered from the surface. So it means this 1.8 or 1.9, this energy obviously, okay, for silicon, let's say 1.2 or 1.1, this is correspondingly from the surface of the silicon. It corresponds from the corresponds to surface of the silicon, and this the deep of this peak corresponds from the interface of the silicon, like at this value. Okay, because silicon is present all over of the sample. Okay, so now you will get a Gaussian peak due to the thickness of the film. Okay, and now if you're able to find out the FWHM of the peak and doing some back calculation, you can easily find out what is the thickness of the film. Okay, because you suppose you are having a thicker sample, then obviously the FWHM of this peak will be larger. If the thickness of the sample is smaller, then the FWHM of the peak will be smaller, or it will be a very thin peak. So by calculating the FWHM of this peak, you can easily find out what is the thickness of the film. Okay, and you see here the if you see the height of this platinum peak, it is larger compared to the height of the silicon peak. It tells you that in your sample you have platinum in more amount compared to silicon. Means atomic concentration of platinum is larger than silicon, because in case of platinum you are getting more backscattered ions, means yield is more. You can see here on the y-axis, for platinum maximum yield is around 14 counts. Okay, 14 into 10 to the power minus 2, but for the silicon it is coming around 6 only. Okay, it means the atomic concentration of platinum is more compared to silicon in your sample. So it tells you that if you are able to find out the area of the peak by using some curve fitting, then you can easily have an estimation about the elemental concentration of your present in your sample. So from this raw data, just by knowing the position of the peak, you can tell which element is present. Just by find out the FWHM of the peak, you can tell the thickness of your film. And just by calculating the area of the peak, you can easily tell what is the elemental concentration of that element. Okay, so simply it's a play of some data. You have some theoretical data, you simulate it, and we have some simulation software available. You need not to do all the calculation on paper by your hand. Some softwares are available. Just you give some approximate value, because you are depositing your sample. You have some idea that silicon should be like let's say 5%, platinum should be let's say 20%. You give some approximate value and you know the thickness. Then that simulated software will generate these peaks similar like here, but their position will vary. Now you will play these parameters. Let's say I'm saying silicon is 5%, but actually it may be 4%. So you just change the concentration of silicon, platinum, and thickness, and try to match your theoretically simulated data with the experimental data. When these two peaks, when these two graphs will match exactly, those value will be your exact value present in your sample. So using some software, simulation softwares are available. You have some rough idea about the concentration of your sample, element present in your sample, and their concentration. You just give some value. It will generate a graph like this. Okay, it will generate a graph like this, like this theoretical one. But their peak positions, their height, their WHM will not be matching exactly. You just play the parameters, like you change the concentration of silicon, you change the concentration of platinum, you change the thickness of your sample, and once you play with this parameter, you will be able to match your theoretically simulated data exactly with the experimental one. And then you can easily say, okay, this much concentration is present, these peaks are present, and this much thickness is present in my sample. Any questions so far?
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है इसके अंदर।
हाँ बताइए।
सर जैसे हम यहाँ पे इस डेटा में देख पा रहे हैं कुछ इंटर डिफ्यूजन का हो रहा है, तो वो इंटर डिफ्यूजन का डेप्थ कितने नैनोमीटर तक है, वो कैसे फाइंड आउट कर सकते हैं सर?
Yeah. Interdiffusion is another option. I mean, it's called interdiffusion is called mixing basically.
Yes sir.
Suppose there, like on the interface here in the sample, this sample is deposited on silicon. Silicon is the substrate, and in the sample in the shaded area you have a platinum as well as silicon both. Okay, so it might be possible that it is not a very clean interface. Some platinum may diffuse into silicon also. Okay, so if suppose some platinum is diffused in the silicon, it is called basically the mixing. Okay, so if mixing is there, then the slope of this peak from here or from the interface, let's say, it will vary. Okay, so you in that case you will not get the exact position. Like you see the here the peak slope here for the platinum peak, this slope is not exactly quotient, it is varying from this angle also and from this area also. Okay, so just by seeing whether this slope is varying or not, you can play about the, I mean, you can get information about the mixing. Basically, it's called ion beam mixing, because once helium ion is going into your sample, they will give some energy to your sample. Okay, and then due to that energy, there will be a small mixing in your sample also, which is called ion beam mixing, which is a separate topic of research and very interesting topic. And it depends on your whether system is miscible or immiscible. Means miscible means they can easily diffuse. Immiscible, they are hard to diffuse. Like, okay, so it depends on miscibility and immiscibility also. But in the data, your peak slope will change. From that, you can find out the mixing. Okay, it's a good question. Now let's see another data where, just a moment. In this another data, now we have many elements present. Like this is our silicon bulk, means silicon substrate, over which first we have a germanium layer, then another silicon layer, then another SiO2 layer. Okay, so suppose I want to see the RBS pattern of this. So in RBS pattern, like you have a germanium, you have a silicon, you have oxygen. Okay, so maybe silicon, germanium, oxygen. So three elements are mainly present. Okay, and in among these three, germanium is having higher mass than silicon and then oxygen. Okay, so because germanium is having the highest mass, so germanium peak should come at highest energy. Like here, it is coming 1.3 to 1.5, and maybe after that silicon is having mass, so silicon peak is coming like here. Then there is one more peak on silicon depending on their width in the sample, and then there is a big peak here. Okay, so like you know, silicon is present at the surface also, on the inner side also, and in the substrate also. So it is basically called the depth. Silicon is present with the depth also. So I told you that if silicons ions are going into your sample, it means into the depth of your sample, then their backscattered energy will be lesser. Okay, so peak will come at lesser energy. Okay, so like here, this is also you can see the color coding. These peaks due to the color are for silicon. Okay, this is for this color is for the silicon which is present in the middle layer. Okay, so you can see with the depth, silicon peak position is also varying. Okay, that says the depth profiling. How can you find out where silicon, I mean the amount of silicon present within the depth of your sample? So this because we have germanium only at one layer, so we are getting a very good Gaussian peak of germanium. Okay, after that we are having silicon peak because mass of the silicon is lesser than germanium, but in principle it should come at further lower energy like here. But SiO2 silicon is from three different angles, one from the surface, one from the inner layer, and one from the substrate. So correspondingly, we are getting different peak. This SI which is present on the surface, we are getting this peak here. Are you able to see my mouse cursor? Are you able
Sir,
to see the cursor?
Yes, it's
yes,
visible.
sir. Sir,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
So yeah, silicon which is present on the surface, we are getting this peak. But one silicon is present in the substrate also. Okay, but it is within the depth. So this peak should come at much lesser energy. So this another peak is due to the silicon which is present in the, this one which is present in the depth, this bigger one. I mean, it's not a peak, it's like a hump. So this hump is due to the silicon present in the here. Now one silicon is present here also, so we are getting this kind of peak. Okay, so in that way you can see we can get elemental elemental idea which elements are present and at what depth they are
Sir,
present.
I
Because
have a question.
yeah, please.
Sir, on this green area, why is there a hump of blue?
Yeah, this one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is basically, colors are not clear coming. This is due to the oxygen. I have marked oxygen here. This is the theoretically position, theoretically calculated position for oxygen. So in
Okay, sir.
SiO2 you have oxygen also.
Yes, sir. हाँ,
Okay.
ठीक है.
But the mass of the oxygen is much lesser than silicon.
Yes, sir.
Although their position in the sample is same. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Suppose their mass difference is also very small. Then the peak of the oxygen should come near to the silicon peak. But because mass difference is too high, so oxygen is the lightest element among these four. So oxygen peak will come at lowest energy. So this peak is due to the oxygen.
Okay, sir.
Fine. So
Yes.
you have this data from the RBS. Just play with the concentration, just play with the elements, and then you can find out what elements are present, how much thickness is there, and all these things. Whether this silicon is from the top. I have written like this silicon is from the top layer. One more thing I would like to tell you that this I have marked germanium here. Okay, so this is the position of the germanium, means this peak should have come here if germanium was at top. Suppose instead of SiO2 you have a germanium on the top, then the actual position of germanium is here. It should have come here, but now germanium is not on the top. It is going into some depth of your sample. Okay, that's why the peak is also shifted. Fine. Suppose we have another layer of germanium here, like you can see the mouse cursor of my mouse. Suppose we have another peak of germanium here. Okay, then
Yes.
the one more germanium will come something like here.
Okay.
Okay, so all these things I have written here. This is the another example where we have silicon substrate and we have now three different elements: copper, silver, and gold. And for the copper, we have two isotopes, 63 and 65. Okay. Similarly, for the silver, we have two isotopes. Okay. Where it is written for the isotopes of silver. Okay, they have not written, but here also we have two isotopes of copper in our sample. We have two isotopes of silver in our sample. Okay. But for the silver, you can see we are getting a single peak. But for the copper, it's a double peak. We are getting a two peak, which you can deconvolute into the two peaks. Why? Because I have written here, for silver we have 107 AG and 109 AG have two small energy difference. Means इनके जो दो पीक होंगे उनका डिफरेंस केवल 6 keV पे होगा, लेकिन हमारा डिटेक्टर का रेजोल्यूशन इतना नहीं है कि वो 6 keV को बाइफरकेट कर सके, क्योंकि आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे 200 है तो यहाँ पे समथिंग 225 होगा. ओके, सो वो 6 keV के बीच में ही आ गया, देन वी आर गेटिंग ए सिंगल पीक. But for the copper, energy difference is 17 keV, which is bigger than our energy resolution. So for the copper, we can easily see the two peaks. Okay, so it depends on the mass of the element. Here, like silver, we have the two isotopes. For both silver, mass is same. For the copper, mass is same. But copper and silver, their mass itself is different. So for the copper, because it depends on the backscattered energy, once helium ions are coming and hitting to your silver or copper, so they will lose different energy. Okay, so after losing the energy from copper 63, copper 65, the energy difference is 17 keV, which is bigger than the resolution of our detector. So we are getting two peaks. But in case of silver, when they are having collision with silver 107 and silver 109, the energy difference is 6 keV, which is less than our energy resolution of the detector. So in silver, we are not able to see two peaks, whereas in copper, we are able to see two peaks. So it depends on the I'm trying to say it depends on the mass of the elements also. For the two isotopes of the copper, we are able to see, and their mass difference, I mean, their atomic number is also difference is same. Like here 63, 65. So difference in atomic number is 2. Here also 107, 109. Difference is 2. But for the copper, we are able to see two masses. For the silver, we are not able to see two peaks. Why? Because it depends on the kinematic factor of silver and copper. I mean, it depends on the mass of the copper and silver. Got my point? Because it's a elastic collision. Once helium ions are having a collision with the silver, they will lose different energy. For the copper, they will lose different energy. That's why you are able to see the two peaks for copper, not for the silver. Now this tells you that how can you find out the thickness. I already told you that peak FW width of the peak is directly proportional to the thickness of the layer. Like here in this sample, we have a 4000 angstrom thick sample, means 400 nanometer. On the front side we have gold. Gold F means gold front side. On the bottom side, gold B means on the bottom side we have the gold, and in between we have aluminum. Okay, so we have basically two elements present, gold and aluminum, but gold layers are at different places. So due to that, we are getting two different peaks of gold. Okay, obviously gold will come at higher energy because mass of the gold is much higher than the aluminum. Okay, so we have a very thin layer of the gold, so we are having a very thin peak of gold which is coming from the surface, and gold which is coming from the bottom. For the aluminum, the width is too large. It's 4000 angstrom. So the peak width is also very high. Why? Because once the 3 MeV helium is coming here, they will hit aluminum atom from the top, then from the inner layer, then from the inner layer, then from the inner layer. As soon as they will come back, their energy will go down. It will keep on decreasing as more deeper your heliums are going, lesser will be its energy after the backscattering. So once you are getting the peak, it will go down, and then suddenly it will go, it will come back. Okay. So the width of this peak is directly proportional to the thickness of the layer. Now another thing is about this hump. For the substrate, like here we have a gold in our sample, and then it is on the some substrate. Okay. So for the substrate, because substrate is in our micrometer or much larger micrometer distance, maybe 0.1 mm. So for the substrate, you are getting a hump, not a peak. Okay, it is an infinitely thick target. Okay, means if your target is infinitely thick, let's say it's a completely gold, very thick layer, then you will not get a Gaussian peak, you will get a hump. Okay. Now my question is that it is another assignment for you. Why you are getting a hump if your thickness of the target is infinite? Okay, whereas if it is finite or less than let's say few nanometer or less than 1 micrometer, you are getting a Gaussian peak. Whereas if it is a very infinitely thick, means it is having, let's say 5 micrometer or 100 micrometer like that, or 0.1 mm. So you will get a hump like this, you will not get a peak. So you have to find out why. I have given some clue here. You can see this is equation for the rectangular hyperbola. So you can get some information from this. Channeling, this I have already told you that you can easily find out about the channels present in the crystal. It's a very interesting experiment, but takes full day. Once you are working with a 6 hours and 7 hours, suddenly you will see your statistics is suddenly going down. It means now you have find out the channel, and this channel is in angstrom. Okay, means now you are able to see within the crystal in angstrom level. आपने एंगस्ट्रम लेवल में देख लिया है कि लाइट यहाँ से पास हो पा रही है आपकी, जो आप वैसे किसी भी माइक्रोस्कोप से भी नहीं देख सकते. कैन नॉट से फ्रॉम द TEM, okay, or from the HRTM. So this was another thing which is called elastic recoil detection analysis. I told you if you want to find out the hydrogen in the sample, then using the same beam you have to change the geometry. Now beam is coming at a very small angle, let's say 15 degree. Here we have our detector. Helium ion will hit your hydrogen atom and they will recoil in further direction. Okay, now we will measuring the energy not of the backscattered helium but recoiled helium atoms. Okay, and then you can easily find out the hydrogen, because helium, once they will hit, they will lose some energy. Accordingly, they will go further, because now in this case, if they are having collision with the hydrogen, they will not go in back direction because helium mass is higher than the hydrogen. Okay, rather they will hit hydrogen, and hydrogen will go in some direction for few angstrom, and then helium also will go in further direction. So this is another good technique which is called elastic recoil detection. Means जो helium आपके recoil हो गए हैं, you are measuring energy of this recoil. It is called ERDA. So you can do ERDA in transmission geometry also, but I'm not going into the detail. This is another story. I mean, for you, it will not be able to understand all these things in 1 hour. No? So I'm not going detail into this. Reflection geometry, I'm not going. So this is called basically hydrogen depth profiling. How you are able to measure the hydrogen, like counts versus channel. So here I'm saying it's a channel. Basically, we have it's a energy, but that energy is varying so continuously that you cannot write all these numbers. Like let's say it is varying like 100.001 MeV, 100.002 MeV, 100.003 MeV. You cannot plot such a small energy here. So what you will do, you will make a channel. Channel means like let's say those ions, those backscatter recoil ions which are having energy between 0 to 10 MeV. You will give them a number one channel. Then 10 to 20 MeV channel 2, 20 to 30 MeV channel 3, 30 to 40 MeV channel 4. Then you will plot channel versus yield. Okay, means all those which are having energy from 0 to 10 MeV, that will come as a single point, channel 1. From 10 to 20 MeV, channel 2, single point. So in that table, in that way, you will be able to analyze your data. Otherwise, the energy difference is so small that you will not be able to see anything in detector. So basically, we are using a MCP, multi-channel MCA, multi-channel analyzer, which will bifurcate your energy in terms of channel, and then you will get channel versus counts. So depth resolution depends on the energy resolution DE, which is governed by various factors such as what is the energy of the incident ion beam and its spread, straggling in the stopper foil and detector system. Stopper foil, I'm not going into detail, difficult for me to cover. Okay, the interesting thing for you is here. Incident beam resolution is typically 50 keV. Detection system resolution is typically 1%, and therefore about 200 keV for 220 MeV heavy ion recoils. One has to choose the experimental parameter in such a way that the recoil energy spread due to various factors is minimized. Means it is saying that अगर आपका incoming ion में suppose we are saying it's a 2.4 MeV, but it may be 2.3 MeV, it may be 2.6 MeV. Accordingly, the collision loss energy in collision will be different. So suppose there is a spread in incoming energy, then obviously your energy of the backscattered helium will be different. So you will not be able to detect whether this change in the energy in the backscattered helium ions is due to the difference of mass present in your sample, or due to the difference in the energy of the incoming ions. So you have to try to minimize the changes in the energy of the incoming ions. That's why it is saying that your energy spread should be minimum. Okay, then only you will be able to tell exactly that this change is due to the mass change in the different mass present in your sample. Okay, so some softwares are also available. Like I want to tell you this also, but I don't have time now. It is already 3 o'clock. I have another online meeting. So it is called RUMP. RUMP is basically Rutherford Universal Manipulation Program. I have this code with me. If you want, you can take it. You just give some commands, and then you can draw your some data, and then you can try to match your simulated data with your experimental data. And if it is matching, then you can see, okay, whatever concentration, whatever thickness you have chosen, that is correct. Another extended version is SIMNRA, which is basically a GUI, graphical user interface. It is more, I mean, this RUMP works in DOS. It doesn't work in Windows. You have to write all these codes in black window, black screen, and you don't have any colors, and it is not a GUI interface. But this SIMNRA is a GUI interface. So instead of giving codes, you can simply select some buttons, then it will give you the data. Yeah, this is final assignment for you. You have to, first one, you please leave it because I have not covered this. Second one you can take. In RBS, why an infinite thick target has characteristic slope? Okay, that I told you. And one more question I have already given in the beginning of my slides. You have to find out that equation for the kinematic factor. This one, if you want, you can write down. You have to draw, drive this equation, which I have given here. I'll tell you. I wanted to cover accelerator part also, but time is less. I cannot do all these things. Where is that equation? Sorry, this is last round. Yeah, this first assignment is that you have to find out this equation for the kinetic factor Km. Okay, where the incoming energy is E naught, after backscattering energy is E1, mass of the incoming ion is m naught, mass of the ions present in your sample is m, and the backscattering angle is theta. So you have to find out this Km kinetic factor, the quantity which is in the bracket. Okay, you have to drive this. It's a hardly 1 or 2 page calculations. And second, you have to tell me this thing. This why for infinitely thick means suppose it's a 5 micrometer thick target, why you are getting a hump, why you are not getting Gaussian peak. Okay, these two questions are clear to all of you. Are you able to
Yes,
listen me?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these two questions I have given to you. If you want, you can write down this equation, because you have to solve this. Please write down this equation. E1 is equal to m square minus m naught square sin square theta whole power 1/2 plus m naught cos theta. Then whole thing is divided by m naught plus me and whole square of it. Please write down this equation. You have to derive this equation using law of conservation of energy and momentum.
Okay, sir.
And second, you have to tell me why you are getting this hump, why you are not getting Gaussian peak, why you are getting hump if the thickness of your target is very high. And then these assignment you can submit to Dr. Rajneesh. He has already given you some time limit, and then you can directly submit to him.
If you have some problem, I can increase 1 hour or 30 minutes more.
Yes.
Or you can submit it by 4:30.
Sir,
Okay,
please
sir.
increase. Thank you.
Okay, let's say 5 o'clock then.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Rajneesh. Dr. Rajneesh, I have another meeting, so I am closing here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
So,
So,
Professor Sharma, I think he should be online, right?
Rajneesh, sir.
Yes, Dr. Rajneesh, I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now.
Sir. Hello.
Yes,
Sir, are you
someone
getting my
was
voice?
asking question. Yes, I'm getting.
Sir, actually, my presentation, my semester end presentation is by